Everyone, welcome to our week 2 press conference with Kent State head football coach Kenni Burns. We'll open everything up for questioning. But coach, let's start with kind of a wrap on week 1 and a look ahead to Arkansas here in week 2.
Yep. Appreciate everybody being here and online. Really going to start by, like always, want to just give a shout out to my daughter and son. I always say hi. She appreciates that. So I'll start with that. And then also, I want to also give a shout out to some people that make our program go that don't get enough credit. Who's our student workers. They do a great job. And Andrew Spence, Reagan, Artest, and Noah Caffell, all are phenomenal. And really, it's capped off by Nia Booker, and all the stuff you see on social media. Nia, really, she's behind most of that, and she does a phenomenal job with all that. So I wanted to give those guys a shout out because they really make our program go, and I don't think they get enough credit at all. Looking at last week's game, UCF, obviously we got to play better. I'll start there. We learned a lot about our football team, and I said that going into that. Week 1 is about learning about where exactly you are, and then finding it and adjusting to it. We didn't play well enough, obviously, to win, but I still feel really good about our team. I still think we got really good players. There were glimpses that you saw where we could be really good and really kind of build off of, and there's things that we really got to look at how we're doing it and what we're doing to make it better. But really still encouraged by our football team. I love the way they came out last night and worked. This program's all about responding to whatever result we have. The result does not matter. It's about responding to it and making it better than what it was the following week or the past week. And that's what I'm looking forward to with our football team. Looking at Arkansas, really impressive football team. They won last week, obviously big against Western Carolina. They've got a really disciplined football team. They play really hard and play together, and they've done a great job of building this thing up. It starts on the offensive side, obviously, with their quarterback. He's a phenomenal player, KJ Jeffries. He's big. He's strong. He's got a big arm. He's a guy that we got to bring down and got to really suffocate him and really put some pressure on him. If you let him sit back there and do what he does, he'll eat you alive. But a really good player in the SEC. And then their running backs also, Raheem Sanders is another really good player. He's a guy that we've got to do a good job of tackling and getting him down in space. If we don't, he's a guy that can have a big day as well. And they've got a couple of linemen that really anchor it down. Their center, Bo, and then their left guard, Brady, are really good players as well. And you can see how physical they are, how big they are, and how they also make this thing go. When we look at the defensive side of the ball, I think it starts with their strong safety, number 8. He's kind of all over the place when it comes to where they put him, but he's a guy that you can obviously jumps out at you on tape. Does a good job tackling and getting to the ball. And then he kind of rotates with number 17, who both kind of play all over the field. And then up front, you can see they're anchored down by their defensive end, Landon Jackson, a captain. Guy plays the game the way it should be played. He plays hard, he plays physical, and he does a really good job. And really the other guy that stands out on defense is their corner, Dwight, who is also a really good player and a guy who's played a lot of football for him and has done a great job so far. So we got our hands cut off for it. But again, I told our football team last night, all I'm looking for is growth. We just have to grow and get better. We've identified what we do well. We identified things we need to fix and get better at. Some of it's fundamental, some of it's schematics, and some of it's personnel. And that's what we're addressing right now. So, like I said, I love this football team still. I love the way they work, and I still think the season is very optimistic on what we could do. Now I'll open up for questions.
All right, this week we'll ask that you use the raise hand feature within the Zoom, and then I'll call on you. You guys will have a few moments to ask your questions for Coach. Let's start with Bob Holt, who covers the Arkansas Razorbacks. Bob, you have a question for Coach? If you please unmute.
Yeah, sure. Hey, Kenny. I cover the Hogs for the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. I know Devin Nicholson. He's a very experienced SEC player. I know he had a ton of tackles for you. How much does it help when you're going to a tough SEC road environment that you have a player like him who's got a lot of SEC experience?
Yeah, it helps a lot. Devin had a really good game. He was one of those guys that really stood out. If we got more guys playing like him, we'll be in really good shape. But his experience in the SEC and his familiarity with this league is definitely something we're going to utilize and playing in that environment and so forth. But he's a guy that has really become an anchor on our defense since he's been here, and we're going to rely on him a lot this week to get us in situations to make plays and to really lead our defense.
I know you're a new head coach. Your first 2 games are on the road against a new Big 12 team and then an SEC team. I know, I guess it's never easy, but how tough is that to break in as a head coach with 2 road games like that?
The one thing I've learned is control what you can control. I can't control the schedule right now. So what we can do as a team is just keep getting better as we go. Obviously, two really good opponents. But I think it's also, you look at it the other way, it also lets you know where you stack to quality opponents and where you got to get yourself to as a program. So that's what I look at it as for me. I think the UCF game showed us a lot about who we are. I still feel like we're a really talented football team. We just got to close the gap, and hopefully we can show that this week as we play Arkansas.
Yeah, I got a few more, but I'll raise my hand again. Thank you.
All right, well, let's go to Thomas Murphy, who also covers the Arkansas Razorbacks. Thomas, if you please unmute and ask your questions for Coach.
Sure will. Hey, Coach, thanks for doing this. If you looked at Arkansas's run game last week, it wasn't like they had been last year. Well, I think they were 7th in the country last year, and they got held to like 105. What did you see maybe that Western Carolina was doing that might play into what you guys do?
I think that's a very hidden stat, the rushing yards. I still think they want to run the ball. I think they were attempting to see, maybe fix a little bit of what they think might be their weaknesses. I think they can obviously got a really good slot receiver that could play well and play with for anybody in the country. But I think that what Western Carolina did a little bit, they loaded the box up and they made them kind of throw the ball, which is part of it. I know Dan Enos is there. He's been there for, I think, this year, but he's been around for a long time. I was at North Dakota State, and I kind of followed him when he was at North Dakota State. And you see a lot of the stuff they did at Maryland, he's doing there right now. But I think that they're a good offense. They can run the ball. I think if they wanted to run the ball more, they could have last week. But I think they were trying to become more of a balanced offense with what they were doing for sure.
Okay, and then have you crossed paths with Sam Pittman? I mean, he's been a lot of places, and I wonder just what the word is in the industry about Sam and what you think of him.
Sam Pittman probably doesn't remember me, but Sam Pittman, I was being recruited by Northern Illinois in high school, and Sam Pittman was one of the coaches there, I believe. So I thought I ran into him there, but no, his reputation is well known. He's been known to build some of the best offensive lines in the country and done a great job so far at Arkansas. I got a ton of respect for him, but I got a ton of respect for how his football teams play. We're attempting to play how they play with tremendous amount of effort and energy, and they love what they do and they do it well. So a ton of respect for Coach Pittman, and look forward to meeting with him before the game.
And could you put your finger on what you would identify maybe as the things you want to do offensively that you didn't do so much against UCF?
Yeah, well, I'm a running back coach by heart, so we got to run the ball better, obviously. But we're breaking in 5 new linemen. I think that showed in the game a little bit, but they're a talented group still. I think they just got to play together more, and that's what I keep coming back to. They haven't played together much as an offensive line, so we got to get them playing together more. I think as the game went on, they got better up front. But we've got to be able to run the ball. I believe in possessing the ball and controlling the clock a little bit and protecting your defense within going fast and doing what we do. I think obviously the key to us is you got to get the first down, and then that allows you to get into your tempo stuff. But if you don't get the first down, then you're really hurting your defense in this type of system that we play with. So I think that starts with running the ball, staying on schedule, and doing a better job up front.
Okay. And my last thing, have you been to a game in Arkansas at all? Have you played against them or been down here?
I have not. I've talked to a lot of coaches that have given me great insight on kind of the things that come with playing down there, but I have not. But I'm looking forward to it. I know it's one of the better venues in college sports, and I'm really good friends with Brett Bielema, so I talked to him a little bit about going down there and what it's like as well.
Thank you.
Now go to the voice of the Golden Flashes, Rob. Rob, you have some questions for Coach?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Dan. Coach, obviously saw a great quarterback last week in Plumlee. You just mentioned how good Jeffries is. Could you compare their games? Are they similar? And is this a similar type challenge for the defense as it was against UCF?
It's a similar challenge, but different styles. I think last week the kid was very good the young man was very good with his feet. He could get out of the pocket and keep a play alive. So many times we thought we had him, suffocated, then he'd spin out of it, and all of a sudden you got the second play started, and now your secondaries, they're sweating, thinking like, oh boy, here you go, here comes the scramble rules. So that's what he did last week, and then he'd take off and run, and we were in a little bit of trouble with that, which brings a whole new unique deal. This young man can do that, but he's got a strong arm. I mean, there's balls that he threw that you're like, whoa, how'd he get that in there? which is something we've got to really do a good job on the secondary with. I don't think his first instinct is to run. I think he's more of a progression guy. I mean, he's going to go through his reads and get the ball down. I think last week that guy, if the first read wasn't there, he was going to take off and run and make the second play get going. So different styles, but different challenges. I think that we've got to understand what we got to do what we do, and we just got to do what we do better. Okay, and that to me is tackling the space, suffocating the quarterback, and really stopping the run. And that's what we hold our hat on as a defense. We just got to do it better.
Thank you, sir.
Let's go back out to Bob Holt, who covers the Razorbacks. Bob, you have some more questions for Coach?
Yeah, sorry, I unmuted myself. I think I muted, then I unmuted. Still getting used to this after 4 years. Kenny, you alluded to a new offensive line, but I guess your whole offense is new starters. How challenging is that? And especially having a freshman center, and Arkansas has got, I don't know, 8 or 9 senior defensive linemen. So what do you think about that?
I think it's great. He's getting baptism by fire. He's playing against some of the best D linemen, I think, in the country right now in the first 2 games. So I think he's getting a good taste of what it's going to be like if he wants to play championship football, which is great. And I think what you saw last week is he got better as the game went on. Drew Page did for sure. And then we got some other guys, a lot of guys, it's their first time starting in big time football games. So my challenge to them is just keep getting better. And they have. And I thought the energy that came out in practice with yesterday was outstanding, and that was something that we hadn't seen in a while. So I think they get it. I think they want to be good. And I think they're learning how to be good, which is great for us. But we know we got challenges up front with the inexperience, but it's not a talent issue to us. It's not that. It's just guys needing to play more and more football together, and they can rely on each other, trust each other, and hopefully one day it just all clicks and we've got a really good O-line. Because the great thing about our offense, if you look at it, everybody's coming back. We're not losing anyone at the end of this year. So we're building something for the long haul, which is great.
And then the offense as a whole, 10 new starters, and then if Mike Alamo, I hope I'm saying his name right. If not, I apologize. But I know he's a.
Don't worry, I still haven't got it right yet.
Okay, and just what do you think about him, and what attracted you to get him, and what kind of player is he, and just having all those the entire new starting lineup on offense.
Yeah, Mike is one thing I love about Mike. Mike's a leader. He's a leader, and he's got a great presence about him. I think that he started the game off, I think 6-9, so he was rolling pretty good there. And then I think they did some things to trick him up a little bit with the look, and he threw a couple balls he shouldn't have. But Mike's a new starter as well. But the thing about Mike is he's got a ton of ability. He's got a strong arm. He's a guy recruited out of high school, so I know a lot about him and his family. And I know Mike is somebody I want to build this thing off of. And he consistently works at his craft. And you saw that after the game. He was in here, most of the night learning about how to play better and what he could have done better, which is great. And then I think this week, you saw Mike take more of a leadership role in practice. That's stuff I didn't see him do before then, where he was, leading the offense and really getting after him to perfect their craft. So I'm excited about Mike. I think Mike is going to be a really good player for us someday. I think he's still learning how to do that, but I love his energy and the work he's putting into it.
And you talked about responding, and you guys had a good practice. Sounds like the guys are pretty upbeat. Well, what's the key to that when you have a tough road loss, and what's the key to responding in a good way to something like that?
Yeah, we talk about this all the time. Our program is built on grit. It's the basis of everything, and it's about growing every single day, responding, having integrity, and really doing it together. And we never talk about the result. We just never do. If we would have won the first game, we wouldn't have came here and talked about the result. We would have talked about how we got to that result and how do we fix it to make it even better the next time. And we talk about responding really in 3 different ways. First and foremost, be creative and positive with your response. No need to get negative. No need to get down on each other. How can we be better with getting creative with what we do and staying extremely positive? And then we talk about being better, not bitter. Let's not be bitter towards each other because we lost the game. Find a way to get better. And then we got to continue to be us. We talk about be you and be us, who we are. We're Kent State. We know what we can do well. We know our style of play. How do we just make it better to give us more of a competitive edge in football games? So that's all we talk about. We've been talking about that since I got here day one. So like I told them right after the game, I'm not mad what happened. I'm disappointed that we didn't win. But it's still one game. I still believe in this football team. And now all I know in my whole career has been about going back to work. We got to go back to work now and find a way to fix what we didn't do well. And that's what we're going to do.
And if you're just joining us, please use the raise hand function to ask your questions for Coach. Given that, let's go to Rob's partner, Tom Evans. Tom, if you'd unmute and ask a couple questions for Coach.
Thanks, Dan. Coach, it looked like right out of the blocks, Alamo had some chemistry with Trell and Krishan. Is that something you had seen in preseason? Is that something you think you can build off moving through the season? It looked like the chemistry early on was really good between them.
Yeah, that's something that we saw. Sorry, in fall camp was something that we knew we had to get. It's interesting. The first couple of plays of a game, you script, right? So you got to script it how you want to do it, and we wanted to come out and try to salvage around that first drive, and then the second drive, we really kind of opened up the playbook a little bit, and really you got a list of guys you want to make sure you get touches, and you saw that in the scripted plays. The one thing I'll say is Mike has a really good chemistry with those two guys, but also Luke. And I think one thing we're challenged with, we've got to get Luke more involved in the game plan for sure. I think sometimes Mike got stuck on those two guys and he didn't take advantage of some of the other guys that were open, which is a learning thing that he's got to just do and see and stay true to our system and so forth. But like I said, we've got such a young offense, an inexperienced offense. These guys just got to play together, and they're going to keep playing together. And I always say, practice is one thing, but it's under the pressure of the situation. And the pressure of the situation is games. So they got to play in games under the pressure of the situation, make mistakes, learn from them, and keep growing. And hopefully, like I told those guys, hopefully we learn quicker than others. But we'll see what happens. But no, I love the chemistry those guys have, and I think we got to get a couple more guys on board in that chemistry as well.
Coach, I had asked you in preseason about the continuity of that offensive line when you bring 5 new starters, and obviously you can only simulate so much in preseason. Where do you think you're at with that? Did you make some strides? I heard you say that you still got a ways to go, but talk to me a little bit about that offensive line.
Yeah, I think we made some strides for sure. I think every opportunity you get to play in the game, you get to learn a little bit and grow. And the great thing about it is there's no one coming. So we got what we got. So these guys got to keep playing and getting better and getting better. I think they just need to keep hearing from me that I got faith in them and I believe in them, which I do, because I've been around this game for a long time and they're talented enough to be a very good offensive line. I think like in fall camp, there were still battles going on. We didn't know who the starting center was going to be. It was not going to be Drew Page going into fall camp. But he worked his way into that 5. Our left guard, Nolan Rumler, our right guard, Nolan Rumler, he moved there, halfway through fall camp. So there's a lot of things that happened that really didn't give us a chance to build that continuity you're talking about. So the games are going to help that, and the play is going to help that. And like I keep saying, the one thing we look at this as an inexperienced offense, but the other side of this is every single one of those kids are coming back next year as well. So any growth they make in each game is going to help this football team moving forward. And that's all I want is consistent growth. And they came out yesterday. I think one thing they learned about the first game is the speed of the game up front. I think it was a very fast defensive line that was twitchy, and they had to understand quickly, like, okay, I got to trust my footwork, trust my fundamentals before I can do anything else schematically. And I think that's what they learned. I think that's what we saw the past 2 practices was those guys really emphasize that and get better with that.
And last question, Coach, I was going to ask you about a little bit about that speed defensively. UCF was that up tempo, and you really kind of couldn't get a rotation with your defensive lineman in there. Does that knock you off your blocks a little bit? Is that something you look to do moving forward? Try to get those guys rotated in and out a little bit more.
That's the one thing I'll say. As a head coach, you're learning, right? That was the biggest thing I learned out of that football game is that the tempo that the offense was going made it really hard to sub. It's just a fact. And kind of you have your scripts and your plans going into it, but about halfway through that first quarter, we're like, whoa, okay, the subbing is not going to happen. So we got to find a way to rotate each drive in each series, which we got to the second and third series. And I think you saw, the third series, we kind of really got in our groove a little bit, and then we were able to slow them down here and there. But it is what it is. I think the biggest thing we've got to do is we got to get more in condition and shape for a team like that. I think we thought we were, but we were not. And that starts with me as a head coach, just seeing what we have and building off of it and making it better. So we did some things from a conditioning standpoint to help our tanks too on defense when we do get in that situation.
Thanks, Coach.
Ethan Westerman, you have some questions for Coach? Do you have a mute, please?
Coach, I also cover the Razorbacks. I'm curious, Arkansas's running back, Raheem Sanders, preseason All-American. With your background as a running backs coach, just what have you seen from him that makes him so effective?
Yeah, I think that he's elusive in space. He could break tackles. He runs downhill. He's a kid that I would love to coach as a running back coach. I think he's got a ton of talent and ability. He's a guy that the plays never – I always say there's certain running backs where the play's never dead. meaning that like you better get him down for sure because he'll break the tackle when you think you got him down and turn into an explosive run. Then he's good at staying on schedule. I think the number one job of a running back is to stay on schedule, meaning I need to get 4 yards to carry, and make it go. And I know last week you look at the stats, he didn't do that, but I don't think it was all him. I think he's got more than enough ability to be a dominant back, and obviously he wouldn't get the accolades that he has if he wasn't. But he's a guy that I am. As you watch film and you look there and you look at not just this game but every game he's played in, you sit there and say, wow, what a special back. And he's a guy that we've got to do a good job of getting down. We've got to make sure we suffocate him along with the quarterback and make it hard for him. But it's not just a first drive thing. He's a back that as the game goes on, I think he gets better and better and better. And with that being known as a defense, you got to make sure that you always are on your P's and Q's from the starting fast, accelerating in the middle, and then finishing strong to make sure he doesn't take advantage of you and create explosive plays.
Once again, if you guys have questions for Coach, please use the raise hand function within our Zoom room. And with that, we go back out to Bob Holt. Bob, more questions for Coach?
Yeah, Kenny, you mentioned you know Brett Bielema pretty well. Of course, Brett, we all know Brett because he coached here for 5 years. What's the deal behind you and Brett knowing each other so well?
Well, he was at Wisconsin as an assistant, and I was coming out of high school at Sacred Heart Griffin High School in Springfield, Illinois, and I took a couple of visits up there, and he was the guy recruiting me, so he did a great job, and I ended up going to Indiana because they never offered, by the way. But no, when I got into coaching, he became someone that was a friend, and I think that he's done well. I was at North Dakota State coaching, and our offensive staff went there and visited with those guys, and we did a lot of the similar things, and he just always treated me well. And when I got into coaching, I was at Minnesota, and the opportunity opened up at Illinois to go there, and we talked a little bit about that opportunity, but didn't work itself out. But he's just always been a good person and a good man, and I love the style of play that he has, and he's done a great job at Illinois, and obviously he was there, so he's got a ton of experience with that atmosphere that's down there.
So you forgave him for not offering you?
Yeah, and yeah, it's very much so. So.
Okay, well you done okay for yourself. And I noticed the grit on your. I don't know if it's on your shirt. My eyes aren't good enough, but I know it was on your shirt at the game, watching the game, and you got the grit. And I read, I guess it's growth, respect with integrity together, or something like that. Just wondering, like where is that something you got from PJ Fleck, or is that something you came up with, or where'd that come from?
Yeah, I came up with that. That was me. PJ Fleck kind of gave me the idea that whenever you become a head coach, you need to have something you truly believe in ingrained into your program. And grit was always this word that came to me. I thought I was raised with grit from my parents, and it was something that I always wanted in my program. And I came up with the acronym a little bit later on as I started to say, okay, what's it mean to you? And it was about, growing every single day, athletically, academically, socially, spiritually. How can you grow to make better man and then in your own life? And then I thought the biggest thing I learned from PJ is respond. You got to respond to whatever you get. The outcome and how you respond is everything. And then I think I wanted men of integrity and high character. And I think that was the other two can't happen unless you have that. And then the togetherness part was something that I just believe connectivity is everything. When guys learn how to play for each other, the result takes care of itself. So that's something that I've had for a long time, been waiting to get my head coaching job to really put it on display. But it's something that this program is big on. And we talk about it every single day. We live it. And this is no different. Again, we never talk about the result. And one day we'll win conference championships over and over and over again. And we'll never talk about those conference championships. We'll talk about how we got there and how do we make it better. So that's grit for you in a nutshell.
Okay, so I had the R part wrong. So it's respond.
Yeah,
okay. One more. When you were talking to Brett about Arkansas, he mentioned the hog call, or you ever seen video of that or anything, or did you know about that?
So I have seen video, not from him, but I did see video. I'm a very meticulous guy, so I did look up a lot of things that go with Arkansas, and I did see the hog call. So I'm ready for that as well.
Okay. Hey, thanks a lot. Appreciate you.
No, thank you.
Let's get things rolling and head back over to Rob Polinsky. Rob, any questions for Coach?
Thanks, Dan. Hey, Coach, I was wondering what you thought of your special teams unit overall against UCF. Andrew made 2 out of 3. Obviously, you had to punt several times. Can you just talk about that unit as a whole and what you thought of your special teams in game 1?
Yeah, we got some highs, some lows. I'll leave it at that. You're looking at the game, we're 3-14, second quarter, we get a chance to kick a field goal that's closer than the last one. Glassie's as to me is as good as they come. He just takes a missed swing, and now all of a sudden you're back to a situation where you're still in a 2-possession game. I think that was critical in that game. I think he would tell you that was a very critical moment in that game as well. Just when you talk about being able to handle the ebbs and flows of a game, your defense gets a good stop, your offense moves the ball down the field. You're starting to feel a little bit of like you're getting closer to slowing this team down, and then you have something there. And the biggest thing that I told our team is that, that happened, but what our response to it, we talk about response, our response to it wasn't great. Okay, it happened, move on. Early on in that game, we got a big play, then we get called for an O-lineman down the field. Well, the offense came, and that didn't matter. They responded, and they still took the ball down the field, and we got 3 points out of it. In that moment, I don't know why that was so devastating to our team. Stuff's going to happen. You got to play better. And you got to move on. And I think we didn't do that in that moment. But as a unit, I thought that we could, like I said, highs and lows. I thought we didn't punt the ball well enough at all. We got to be better in that facet too, and consistent there. The KOR unit obviously had the nice return, which was nice to see. But there was some good stuff to build off of. I think I've got two of the best special teams coordinators that in the country, and CJ Robbins and Cody Morgan. Cody's did a great job in North Dakota State, and CJ's done a great job so far here. And I think they see the positives in that thing, but also areas we can improve. But as a unit, it wasn't good enough. Obviously, we got to be better.
Being that it was your first game as a head coach, was there one or two things that maybe you learned about yourself or during a game, going forward that you're going to be able to use to help yourself?
For sure. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just where you deploy your eyes and at what time. We've got the big book, I call it, which is basically a book that gives you every scenario and during the game, when to go forward, when to kick it, 2-minute situations, when to call your timeouts. And I'm managing that obviously during the game with a couple other guys. But I think the biggest thing is where you have your eyes. There's so many times that as an offensive coach, your eyes are in certain places that you're looking at during the game. As a head coach, your eyes are a little bit of everywhere. And I'm starting to learn that a little bit. Offensively, where I want my eyes to be, and then defensively, where also they need to be, and then also controlling the clock and managing the game clock in every situation that you get on the field. I think that I attempted to prepare for it by watching tons of games and mock games and going through different stuff, but you really don't know until you're there. And I think there were some things I did well, and there's some things like our players that I got to improve with as well when it comes to time management, situational football, and handling that better. But we'll learn, we'll grow. I'm excited about it. Definitely a different type of challenge, but definitely one I'm up to and ready for.
Thanks, and good luck Saturday.
Thank you.
All right. Once again, if you guys have any questions for Coach, please utilize the raised hand feature. With that, let's go out to the Leland Zone, Derek DeMay. Derek, any questions for Coach?
Coach, happy Labor Day before we get too far into it. But as you talked about, you do have some transfers from some of those Power 5 schools, but still going into an environment like Arkansas, an SEC school, how important is it for the guys to, hone in on you're there for the football game, not to get caught up in the glitz and glamour that comes with some of these Power 5 schools and their stadiums?
Yeah, you know what? I don't worry about that with this team, to be honest with you. As much as it's an inexperienced team, it's a very mature football team, which I like. These guys, they can have the tough conversations and not get rattled or be emotional. It's a really good group of guys, and I don't think at any moment last week we were overwhelmed with the environment we were in. I think it was more so the tempo and the team we were playing. So I don't get worried about that too much with this team. I think they're very businesslike. Again, we had a result, and they came right back and went to work the last 2 practices. So I'm not worried about that too much. If I have to address it, I will. But I think this team is very, very business oriented. As you watch how they travel, how they go about their business, it's one that is really impressive in my opinion. So not too worried about the atmosphere of that. The biggest thing is like being able to handle the crowd noise on offense and that type of stuff, which we practice every single Wednesday and Thursday. So we'll be ready to roll.
Thank you, Derek. And let's go back out to Arkansas and Bob Holt. Bob, any further questions for Coach?
Yeah, sorry, Kenny. I thought I was done, but no one popped in my head. I know it was obviously a long trip to Orlando and back home and all that, but you guys did play Thursday, so you had a little extra time to prep for this game. How much, if at all, does that help?
It helps. I think when you watched, we prepped for it as a coaching staff, but really we got into them last night just a little bit. We did a lot of good on good, meaning our offense against our defense. I think the biggest thing I learned from that game is that the speed of the game wasn't maybe being mimicked on our scout team. So I did a little bit more good on good stuff, and we serviced each other a little bit to give really up tempo speed and physicality that we might have been missing in our prep to UCF. So again, we learn and we grow. That's what we're doing, So we did more good on good stuff, and I think the extra time helped with that because again, I can do all the scheme I want to. If the game's too fast for our guys and we can't make tackles or we can't create explosive plays on offense, it's all for nil. So the time was great to work on the speed of the game.
Does it help a little bit physically when you're obviously in a tough game? You get a couple extra days where you have to go play another pretty physical team.
We took off Friday and then we got back to work on Saturday. So I think that this team knows that they have to work right now. We got to keep working at our craft. And, you look at it, we had way too many missed tackles in that football game. So we played some tackle football on Saturday and Sunday to get ourselves ready to roll, more so on Sunday, but to get ourselves ready to rock and roll. And you saw some improvement in that doing. And the thing about it, I told the guys, I said, listen, I can go out there and I could take it easy on you and say, let's get our bodies back ready to play, or we can go fix our problems. And I said, you guys choose. And they chose to fix their problems, so they went out there and we worked, and they worked at a high level, and we'll pull back later in the week. But I was encouraged by the response to this football team and how they went about their business last night for sure. So, I don't think they're worried about their bodies right now. I think they want to just get better. And that's why I said I love this football team, because it'll come at one point. I don't know when, but if they keep working like they will, it'll all come together.
Okay. Thanks again. Really appreciate you.
Yep. No problem, buddy.
Let's put a wrap on this week's press conference. Again, we'll upload this to our YouTube, Facebook, and